Hello everyone, welcome back to another top 10 video. This is going to be a continuation of the Redux series, going back to late 2020 and for January of 2021. I've been pretty much going over everything updated since the end of 2020, and we're moving on to Jeskai, and similar to Abzan, there's not a lot of support for Jeskai. There's only like 24 cards, so it's not exactly the easiest to make a top 10 of. You don't really feel like there's just 10 really good cards, even though I think there are 10 solid cards for Commander here. It's just they're very specific for their own strategies. It's not like when we go to monocolor and you have to think objectively what is really powerful to put into a deck. Here it's more about, well, what is a fun commander option? What is a flexible commander option that you could also throw into another deck? So starting off here is number 10, a Planeswalker, Narset of the Ancient Way. Now Narset has been a creature and a Planeswalker a few times. She's not exactly what I would say is super powerful. I do like her ult though. Her ult is an emblem where whenever you cast a non-creature spell, it deals 2 damage to any target, so that's pretty cool. The -2 is a way to draw a card, and then you can discard any non-land and then deal damage to a creature or a planeswalker equal to the card's converted mana cost, so that's pretty cool. The +1 is not super involving, but it is a way to get some extra mana if you're just looking for 1 more mana. Overall, not a planeswalker I expect to see everywhere, but it's still pretty interesting. It's rather easy to get to that emblem, so you don't really have to work too hard to keep her out there. She's not really a big threat, but one that I could definitely see being effective in an actual game. Number 9 is Jeskai Ascendancy. Very cool card. I think the goal for a lot of people when they build a deck in Jeskai is to find some kind of way to combo around Jeskai Ascendancy, because it is such a cool card. If you like Intruder Alarm and Paradox Engine, it kind of has a similar effect. You just like untapping your creatures, getting more value out of them, and there are ways that you can abuse this in 5-color decks with a lot of mana dorks. So you can keep casting spells, you can keep untapping your mana dorks. I'll argue it's not the easiest thing to accomplish, but Jeskai Ascendancy decks can be pretty fun and well worth the tutoring just to get it out there. You do of course have a way to draw cards and discard, so it's its own engine. You can keep your turn going. On top of the whole prowess thing, you're pretty much adding more prowess to all of your other prowess creatures, giving them all +1/+1 until end of turn whenever you cast a non-creature spell. Very versatile. I mean, there's just so much you can do with this card. And then number 8, we have Zedruu the Greathearted. First commander option up here, and Zedruu has aged quite a bit. I would argue still fun to play with, still fun to make a group hug deck if that's what you want to do. I think she's one of the first really decent group hug commanders because you are rewarded for giving away some of your permanents. You get to gain life and you get to draw cards. However, the best way to play Zedruu is by giving your opponents terrible things. And not just terrible things, but things that punish them, that actively make it harder for them to play their game. Maybe something where they can't play creature spells, something where they can't play lands. Believe it or not, we still do get some of these cards. It's rather uncommon though, so support is going to be limited for this commander going forward. I just don't see Wizards of the Coast making cards with Zedruu the Greathearted in mind anymore. You have to actively go out of your way to make a terrible card, and then have someone who opens up a set ask themselves, why is this card in here? It's so bad. Oh no, it's for that one commander option where you can give away terrible permanents. I know there's others, but Zedruu was really the first. So number 7, we have Sevinne, the Chronoclasm. I didn't even do that on purpose, by the way. I'm just realizing it now. Sevinne is number 7, but this is pretty much the flashback commander. Not the best colors for flashback. I think most of us would say you get some really powerful flashback cards in black. Probably should have found a way to include that. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, so if those have flashback and you cast one from your graveyard, you get to copy that spell and you get to choose new targets for the copy. Also pretty balanced off by the fact that you prevent all damage that would be dealt to Sevinne, so Sevinne's pretty much indestructible. Can still be destroyed with a Doomblade or something like that, but a very good blocker. And when you have more complex, maybe more competitive commanders in that mix for Commander 2019, doesn't really hurt to have a pretty good blocker there. Number 6 is Whirlwind of Thought. This is a relatively newer card from Ikoria, and I haven't really had a chance to play with it yet, but I do think the ability is pretty ridiculous. Whenever you cast your non-creature spell, you get to draw a card. So, Jeskai Ascendancy lets you draw and discard, has some other benefits to it, but this is just straight up card draw. So if you've ever played a Spellslinger deck, one of the biggest downsides is when you draw and you don't really get anything. Maybe you have cantrips and you're doing your best to get through your deck. Meanwhile, with this out, you can just keep drawing whenever you play your non-creature spells. Pretty easy to understand why this is going to be pretty good going forward. Only downside to really any card on this list is the fact that you are playing 3 specific colors. So if this was a mono blue enchantment, it would probably be one of the better enchantments in the whole game. Number 5 is Gavi Nest Warden. Now Gavi is interesting because she's really just there to make cycling worth it. Cycling is really interesting because for the longest time people have tried to make it a playable thing in Commander, and I think it has worked. Thanks to Amonkhet a while back, we ended up getting a ton of cycling support. And you just have enchantments that make it so much easier to play cycling because you get a payoff. It's not just you cycle it and you get to draw a card anymore. You need some kind of power outside of just drawing into more cards. So you can find ways of getting more creature tokens for doing that, get some kind of board presence that can be kind of a downside when you're playing cycling. But with Gavi, you get creature tokens, you get those little 2/2 cat dinosaurs, which might not be a big deal at first until you realize just how good getting several 2/2s can be in Commander. It can really help you hold your own in combat. But you get a free cycling, so Gavi is pretty much just the perfect enabler for cycling right now in Commander. Don't know what it is with these Commander options where they're just obsessed with guarding nests. Like we have Atlapalani and Naya. Like, can't these ladies just, take care of their own children? Why do they have to look after dinosaur eggs? And then number 4, we have Pramikon Sky Rampart. I love Commander options that kind of change how you play the game. Like, as soon as you play it, the whole game becomes about that commander. And I think Pramikon is a good example of this, because suddenly you have to pay attention to who you attack and who you're not able to attack, because if you're not able to attack someone and you need to deal with whatever they're doing or you need to get rid of them, it can make your game a bit more challenging, and suddenly it's about, can I deal with Pramikon? So it's a very simple ETB. You just change the direction that people are allowed to attack, left or right, and that can be a lot of fun to play with. If you can abuse the ETB, you can always change the direction when you need to. Someone looks like they're going to attack you. In response, you just blink it, instant speed, and then have it come back and change the direction again. As a commander, this can be pretty fun to play with, but I think Pramikon is versatile enough where you could throw it into any kind of deck, whether it be Group Hug, Chaos. It's something I think is going to age pretty well. Number 3, I have Narset Enlightened Master. No doubt about it, has been for the longest time one of the most powerful commanders in these colors, if not the most powerful. Tends to be a bit on the boring side. If you've played this deck or you've played against it, you kind of understand what I'm talking about. It wins in pretty much the same exact way every single time. You either win by getting to your extra turn spells or you win by getting to your extra combat spells. But that's just also you could win by combat. So it inevitably becomes, I'm just going to keep attacking you and eventually getting to commander damage, because everything in my deck is designed to make it easy for me to do that as soon as possible. Still though, without a doubt, one of the most powerful commanders if you can build a deck around her. And then number 2, we have Elsha of the Infinite. Another commander I think is right up there with Narset. I think she's a bit more flexible though. I think if you want to go for competitive EDH, I think Elsha's probably the best all around, maybe. You kind of get the prowess mechanic, so you have a way to, if you wanted to, deal commander damage, so that's an element of the deck. But you also have other ways to win. Kind of funny why they just decided to name a commander of the Infinite when that's such a big deal in competitive EDH, is being able to go off an infinite. So you just play a bunch of zero-costed artifacts. Things that are not going to cost you a lot of mana, because being able to play non-creature spells off the top of your deck is, as you would imagine, pretty powerful. You also get to do it as if it had flash, so you have the advantage of timing on your side. You can do this at the end of your opponent's turn, saving your turn for all your mana. Really powerful commander option. I mean, there's several things you can do here. If you want to play more of a casual EDH deck, I think Elsha's also pretty flexible. I mean, you can't really lose here. So, before I go on to number 1, we do have some honorable mentions, although not many. We have Akim the Soaring Wind, who's more of like a token commander, not really something super creative. So if you got that deck for Commander 2020, you might be a little disappointed by the fact that it's just literally a token deck. Something I do want to build around, because I think there's a lot of good token support in these 3 colors, but it's not really something that I think is going to get the creative juices flowing. And we have a newer commander option from Commander Legends, Nostro, Voice of the Crags. You get 3 different modes here, which I like cards that give you different modes. However, it's very dependent on having a big turn. You have to be able to cast several spells in a turn in order to benefit. And once you tap Nostro, you can only really choose one. So you can scry X, you could have Nostro deal X damage to a target creature, you can gain X life. If I'm playing more spells in a single turn, I'm gonna want more value. So that's the big downside here with Nostro. But moving on to number 1, we have Kikar Wind's Fury. Now, I'm a big fan of this commander option. I think you get kind of the best of both worlds. If you want to play casually, Kikar can be pretty powerful. If you want to play more competitively, Kikar can be pretty powerful. And it seems like you can just throw it into whatever deck you want to, which does kind of set it apart from Elsha and Narset, where you could throw Kikar into any kind of Spellslinger deck that's playing the 3 colors. You could throw it into a bird tribal deck. You could throw it into some kind of spirit deck even. I don't know why you would do that. But you just get value here. You get rewarded for playing more non-creature spells by getting those spirits. Spirits that you can then sacrifice for red mana, making it incredibly easy to go off with this deck. And even if you don't go competitive, like I said, you have a very fun casual commander here as well. Something that I predict is going to be pretty fun to play with for a long time. But anyway, let me know what you think about the top 10 best cards in Jeskai colors. I'm Commander Void signing off. See you all next time.